Story 1. I genuinely feel these emotions profoundly. In those moments, it is nearly impossible to convince myself that my reaction isn't entirely real and justified because it is my automatic response. I have been in remission for many years and fully take responsibility for my actions, but my internal reactions to situations can still be very strong, making it difficult to pull myself out of them in order to act or respond appropriately. Emotions are meant to protect us, and mine tend to be intense, which can be very challenging. However, it is not anyone else's responsibility to excuse or accept inappropriate or harmful behavior that may occur when someone has yet to take accountability and work through their feelings, which is a significant challenge and one of the hardest things to do. Story 2. I'm fully aware that I may be overreacting and that I might seem self-centered. I don't want to feel this way. I would love to not feel selfish, but I can't turn it off. I either don't trust you at all or I trust you completely, and I need your approval. I know it's a lot and I dislike it just as much. Story 3. When something goes wrong or I feel abandoned, I experience intense pain that feels unbearable. When I express suicidal thoughts during that time, I am not being dramatic or manipulative. I genuinely cannot endure feeling this way. Story 4. It looks different for everyone. We are not all manipulative or abusive. I wish others understood how painful it is for us to feel emotions. Story 5. Being an abuser is not part of the diagnostic criteria. People with borderline personality disorder generally feel things very intensely, often paired with childhood trauma. It is an illness, not a choice. Story 6. No one will ever hate us as much as we hate ourselves. Dialectical behavior therapy and neurofeedback can be life-changing if you are ready for them. I am glad I was. Story 7. 1. It manifests differently for everyone. Triggers are different, reactions are different, and severity is different. 2. It literally rewires your brain. We cannot go back to how our brains were before our trauma. It is permanent. 3. Everything is dialed up to the extreme. A change in body language. Someone is mad at me. A change in tone? I've done something wrong. If someone changes how they breathe, I'm about to face serious consequences. Everything is either at its best or its worst. There is very little in between, and even what's there feels like emptiness. For therapy is only so effective. It can take years of therapy to make a dent in symptoms of borderline personality disorder, but it is necessary. Medication helps too. However, as point 2 stated, our brains have been permanently changed, and we cannot return to our pre-trauma state. We can only learn to manage our thoughts, symptoms, and behaviors. 5. I don't want to be selfish. I hate it. I dislike that my brain makes everything about what I've done or said. There is a reason I am actively trying to work on managing my symptoms and thought patterns. Story 8. That we are not being dramatic, at least on purpose. We genuinely feel the world is ending and that we are dying in moments of intense emotion. Yes, these reactions can be managed, but the emotions feel extremely real for us. Story 9. Quiet borderline personality disorder is like constantly having a personal bully in your brain, trying everything to bring you down. Being left alone with my thoughts can be very stressful. Story 10. I wish people understood that when I feel sad, it's not just feeling sad. It's feeling depressed, like I don't want to live anymore. I wish they understood that I can't change how quickly my mood changes. Story 11. Reading all these comments is very enlightening. I have done extensive research into borderline personality disorder because I have always suspected my mom has been undiagnosed her whole life. However, I don't know how she could organically decide that she needs help. If she could acknowledge any of this, it would make a significant difference in our relationship and all her relationships. I cannot fully understand what you all go through, but I wanted to express my appreciation for your candid reflections. Story 12. I wish people would understand that it is a varied disorder that impacts different individuals in different ways, and that everyone deals with their symptoms uniquely. I have worked very hard in therapy to learn how to both self-regulate and communicate with others productively. As a result, I am now able to maintain healthy, close relationships much better than I could when I was an undiagnosed, untreated teenager. I am mostly asymptomatic on the outside now, It hurts that some people who have never met me and do not know me or my friends' dynamics would immediately assume that I must be an awful, manipulative, abusive person based solely on one label. This is especially frustrating when people insist that we are incapable of caring about anyone but ourselves. I understand the perspective. The individual responsible for my borderline personality disorder, which is a trauma-related condition, probably had it himself, and I will never forgive him for how he treated me. However, I cannot comprehend how people can know that there are thousands of us with this disorder and still think that all of us are terrible people who have chosen to languish in our symptoms, allowing them to destroy everyone around us. We are not inhuman monsters. We are human beings with our own unique personalities and morals beyond the disorder. I am not saying that none of us are abusive or that I have never personally hurt anyone because of my illness, but I have worked to prevent that from happening again. I do not want to be that person, and my efforts have paid off. I wish people would stop acting as if change is impossible and accept that not everyone is the same. Story 13. I am not a bad person or an abusive person by nature. I had a difficult childhood that taught me I wasn't enough, and I acted out in despair for most of my life. Now that I don't feel that way anymore, I can say for sure that I felt like I was dying whenever I felt abandoned. However, with therapy, accountability, and patience, I am in a healthy long-term relationship and in the best place I have ever been. I wish people wouldn't discount someone because of a diagnosis. It is understandable if they choose to distance themselves from someone who refuses to work on themselves. However, the condition I have can have an extremely good prognosis when properly treated. With treatment, individuals can become better, happier people. It requires patience, but also boundaries. For all individuals with my condition, it can get so much better. I want to clarify that I have been formally diagnosed and hospitalized for months at a time, so I am professionally diagnosed, in response to a comment suggesting otherwise. Story 14. I am not diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, but I grew up with a mother who was diagnosed. She was also an alcoholic and consciously chose not to seek treatment while being the abuser responsible for my childhood trauma. Some things, however, she could not help. Someone with borderline personality disorder often feels their emotions magnified significantly. Imagine how you feel when you're sad, and then imagine amplifying that to the maximum extent you can handle. That boundary of what you can manage is where someone with this disorder feels most of their emotions. Slight betrayals become dramatic levels of betrayal for them, while moderate euphoria convinces them that they are unbreakable. Irritation can quickly escalate into seething rage. There are healthy treatment options that can protect individuals and others. When they are not in a highly emotional state, they are perfectly capable of reflecting on their behavior. Anyone using their diagnosis as a shield to excuse themselves from consequences is being selfish and dangerous. Never accept abuse from someone who is aware of their diagnosis. Approach those who do not yet understand or those who are in treatment with empathy, patience, and understanding. Even when treated, the situation may never be perfect. Do not take away their responsibility, but do not hold their mistakes against them if they are genuinely trying. Story 15. I dislike being this way. I do not have a manipulative bone in my body, but as soon as someone recognizes that this is a symptom, they take advantage of it. I cannot help that I am very sensitive, but my feelings are my own, and I have every right to feel them. Story 16. Borderline personality disorder is a complex condition that affects every aspect of one's life, not just mood swings. Biographies of Marilyn Monroe and Tommy Lynn Sells illustrate severe cases of borderline personality disorder in both women and men, highlighting clear symptoms that are often textbook examples. Generally, the more traumatic a person's childhood is, the more severe their borderline personality disorder may become in adulthood. One individual became a serial killer who harmed random people out of bitterness, while the other, after suffering from infidelity and abuse, sought revenge on her father for abandonment and ultimately died because, despite her intelligence, she pushed boundaries with the wrong person. Both individuals struggled with a profound sense of emptiness, described as feeling like there is a hole in their chest. Despite their differences, they share one commonality. People feel pity for them as children. Story 17. Just because I have learned to successfully hide my outbursts in episodes, and I have learned how to navigate a somewhat normal life, does not mean that I am cured. I have learned to avoid triggers and situations, recognize when episodes are happening or about to happen, and minimize any damage I can cause. In my mind, at the end of the day, I do not have any regrets about my actions. I am only ever upset about the consequences and always see myself as a victim. I tend to push people away and then feel distraught over what I perceive as abandonment. I know that in most interactions, I am often the toxic person. I have learned to maintain a somewhat normal life, but when I feel something, it is all-consuming and never-ending. Every emotion or lack of emotion feels like a ledge I have to talk myself down from. I have spent almost 15 years without medication and without the need for more therapy. I still have my knee-jerk reactions and initial thoughts that I must hold back to properly assess the appropriate response. It is constant work, and I have to remind myself that whatever I am feeling or thinking will pass. If I let it pass successfully, then it will be one less mess for me to clean up or explain. I must also remind myself that while I am experiencing these world-shattering emotions or thoughts, there are others who are not experiencing them or who cannot understand them. Story 18:1. My feelings are often extreme. I experience very few in-betweens. Even with a mood stabilizer, my emotional extremes are not eliminated, only diminished in intensity. I am not impulsive by choice. This trait has negatively impacted my life. Forcing myself into the spotlight or seeking attention is the last thing I want to do. Ideally, I would prefer to blend in and fade into the background. In the past, I often did not realize I was seeking attention until after the fact. After many years of therapy, I have learned to manage that urge. Despite the desire, it is not what I truly want. Even when I engage in those behaviors, it does not align with my wishes. This is a complicated issue that has been one of my biggest challenges in life. I have accepted that my tendency to feel things in extremes is unlikely to change. My best friend, who lives life fully, has inspired me to embrace the same approach. Now, I experience and appreciate everything intensely. This shift has improved my quality of life, aided by mood stabilizers and over a decade of therapy. People often comment that I should temper my intensity with remarks like, "Can you stop saying you hate things? You can't hate that many things." Or, "Calm down. It's not that exciting." I often hear, "Why are you crying? Do you really feel that upset over this?" While we are emotional, I am tired of suppressing that. I am living and experiencing my emotions authentically now, and frankly, it feels great. It would take a book to fully explain my struggles. Please do not think we are narcissistic, cruel, attention-seeking individuals with unresolved issues. We are human beings just like you. I face many psychological challenges, but borderline personality disorder has been the most difficult and life-altering of them all. It has significantly affected many areas of my life, and I may never know how to resolve those effects. It is a constant struggle, and it can be exhausting. Story 19. I wish people would realize that attempting to calm me down when I'm in my intense anger isn't helpful. It often makes me feel more agitated. If I'm trying to remove myself from the surroundings that are fueling my rage, just let me leave. Although it is nearly impossible for me to control my anger, my destructive tendencies are directed only towards myself or personal belongings. I have been really good for the last few years, though. After trying a couple of different medications, I started microdosing. It works wonders for me. I might only have about 5 to 10 outbursts in a year, as opposed to 10 to 20 a month. It nearly stops everything, and I can also recognize when an episode is starting early enough to step away, regain my composure, and return without a complete breakdown. Story 20. Emotions for us are like an on-off light switch. We feel something completely or not at all, while others have a fader to adjust the intensity of their feelings. For us, it's black or white, never gray. We don't mean to be overwhelming, we just can't help it. People think we are overreacting, but we truly do feel things that intensely. Story 21. Borderline personality disorder isn't something you can just get over or snap out of. It's not a phase or some exaggerated emotion. It's the constant feeling of being too much for everyone around you. Too much to love, too much to handle, too much to care for. And the worst part? You never really know if they'll stick around. I fight every day just to stay grounded. The smallest thing can send me spiraling, and when I say small, I mean things that shouldn't matter at all. But they do. Every little thing builds on top of the last, and I end up drowning in it. I just want to feel seen without being told that I'm too much. I'm not manipulative. I'm not toxic. I'm just someone who's learned to survive on my own. The love I give is real, but it's intense because I've never had the luxury of knowing it would be returned. It's never been easy for me to trust people, so when I do, it means everything. When I say I love you, I mean it with everything I have, and it's terrifying. I'm tired of pretending that everything's okay when it isn't. I'm tired of hearing people tell me how to feel or how to act. I just want to exist without feeling like I have to apologize for my emotions. I'm not here to be fixed. I'm here to be understood. Story 22. Yes, I have had therapy for 5 years, with some waiting periods in between, but I am not cured. There is no cure. I am better, but I will never be completely okay. I still struggle with my emotions daily. I had a really bad day recently, and my mom said I have lost it again. Comments like that are not helpful. Story 23. Sometimes my medicine is working and sometimes it is not. Occasionally, it works at 50% efficiency, and other times at 33%. I don't know. I just take it every day. Story 24. I am trying even on bad days when I isolate because I do not want to be around people when I am irritable. My friends know I cancel sometimes and they seem fine, but younger people have it worse. The older you get, the better you become at managing emotions, at least in my experience. Story 25. Even though I wish I cared about you or anyone, I simply cannot. That's why I am so difficult to converse with. Story 26. We are not manipulative liars, despite what many therapists and psychiatrists believe. Many professionals will even refuse to work with us because of this belief. We genuinely feel the way we express our emotions, and these feelings serve as a filter that colors our memories and reasoning. For example, my mother often makes negative comments about my weight. I have explained to her that my medication causes weight gain, but it is essential for my survival. When she criticizes my diet, it makes me feel as though she would prefer me to be dead than overweight. I know that is not true and that she would be upset if I expressed that sentiment, but this is why I become angry when she attempts to control what I eat. She believes she is trying to protect my health, but in reality, she is harming my mental well-being, which poses a more immediate threat to my life. Instead of telling us we are wrong, please try to understand why we feel the way we do. Reassure us that we are safe and loved. Story 27. It is necessary to have a therapist with whom you can build a firm bond and sense of trust. I had to drop out of high school because of the time I spent in eating disorder treatment centers. I was also in the psychiatric ward twice because of self-harm. The bigger challenge, for me and most others with borderline personality disorder, is finding a sense of identity beyond being sick or defined by the disorder. Recovery is a process, and a lot of healing occurs when you have consistent, reasonable boundaries with a professional. I have been in psychoanalysis for nearly 8 years now, and I hardly struggle with borderline personality disorder anymore. I do not fear abandonment, despite my fiancé cheating on me and ending our engagement. I almost never self-harm. I am fully recovered from my eating disorder, and I do not lash out. It takes time, but recovery is possible if you desire it. I have built a lot of meaningful things in my life. At one point, I was going to have electroconvulsive therapy and was in the process of applying for disability. Now, I am completing a fully funded master's degree while I teach undergraduates at the same university. I wouldn't call my life happy, but at least I have a life now. Additionally, if you are a partner, ensure that you do not feel responsible for their problems, even though we often want you to. Much of borderline personality disorder stems from a desire for someone to save us. Story 28. It's not a death sentence or a lost cause. There's a stigma about it being untreatable. I'm living proof that it's completely untrue. I had signs of it as early as 12. In my teen years, I was beyond the usual emotional, dramatic teenager. I would feel completely suffocated by my emotions and was often upset about things that were not significant to most people. I really hated myself and never grew out of it. I constantly had identity crises. By 17, I was experiencing persistent suicidal depression. Antidepressants made things better for a while, but I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder when some significant life events triggered a spiral into intense symptoms. That was my own personal hell and probably just as bad for those around me. I would swing from being angry at the world to severe self-hatred and disgust. I felt unbearably insecure and anxious. I spent a couple of years having extreme outbursts at least once a week, where I would curse everyone. I would be mean and horrible to the people I love. I self-harmed often and attempted to take my own life a couple of times. I was physically destructive. I broke things and even crashed my boyfriend's car once during a meltdown. I used drugs and alcohol to numb my feelings, becoming an alcoholic and more unstable. But I hit rock bottom at 25 and decided I could not live my life in this much turmoil and chaos forever. If I didn't figure out how to fix myself, I was going to lose everyone I cared about. I was lucky I hadn't lost them by that point. I started dialectical behavior therapy and managing my anxious behavior. I practiced diligently and regained control of my thoughts and emotions. It was not easy. I can't take back anything I've done in the past. Those memories still haunt me, but I am proud that it's not who I am anymore. I'm by no means a saint, and I still have really bad moments under the right circumstances, but my success rate in calming down versus blowing up is now 250 to 1. It used to be closer to 50 to 50. I am incredibly proud. It's been 5 years, and while I still have my moments, life is so much better now. For anyone out there struggling like I did, don't give up. Can and will get better with hard work. And it is hard work. Lots of love to everyone. Story 29, we can improve ourselves. It takes a lot of hard work, and we must confront some difficult truths, but therapy and medication can help. I still experience issues with impulse control, but the intense feelings of rage and emotion are no longer present. I spent my teens, 20s, and most of my 30s struggling. I worked hard in therapy to change. I've become calmer and no longer panic. When I get upset, I process my feelings, reflect on them, express how I feel, and think before I speak. My last psychological evaluation showed minor signs of borderline personality disorder, and my markers used to be much higher. A friend who has known me since my teenage years says it feels like getting to know me all over again. I am a different person. Story 30, that we aren't monsters. That I'm not trying to drown you. That I genuinely hate myself chronically. So stop expecting me to change myself. Story 31. If I learned anything from dialectical behavior therapy, it's that two ideas can coexist. I can act out from experiencing intense emotions and cause others pain, while my biggest fear is causing that pain to others. I truly hate how I've made people feel in my lowest or most challenging moments. However, the way people experience me leads them to feel as though I want them to hurt. I don't wake up in the morning and choose this. If it were as simple as choosing, it wouldn't be an issue. Story 32. No matter how much we recognize something is irrational and bad, sometimes we cannot win the battle. When emotions are at a high level, control is extremely difficult. It is frustrating, and we should not excuse bad behavior, but our minds can be quite chaotic. Story 33. My brain overdeveloped my emotional sector and underdeveloped the sector responsible for judgment and memory. I work hard to control and exercise this because borderline personality disorder can be healed, but it requires a lot of effort. Story 34. I either care too much or I don't care. I don't know if it has something to do with borderline personality disorder, but I seem to always care about small things but not about big things. For example, if my friend got with my ex, I wouldn't care. However, if I heard they were talking badly about me, I would be upset. Story 35. I went misdiagnosed for years because I've learned to cope and can keep friends, and because I am generally a very friendly and compliant person. However, my mood swings are horrific, and my issues with dissociation and breakdowns are something I need to work on. I started mood stabilizers recently, and it has been a godsend, but I'm still struggling. I have this disorder because it is a trauma-related condition. I was abused and abandoned repeatedly as a child, which profoundly affected my psyche. When I have meltdowns and say distressing things, I genuinely do not mean it. I'm not making excuses. My brain gets very irrational and goes through faulty reasoning. It doesn't justify any harm, but I promise I'm not lying. I am also working very hard to overcome this. I am constantly scared that I will be rejected. I'm terrified of becoming an abuser like my mother and being abandoned by the people I love. Because of this, I often become very paranoid and do whatever I can to try to placate people. However, if my brain decides someone is untrustworthy, it can snap into a mindset of, I need to remove this person from my life before I get hurt. It's concerning how people are more tolerant of my mental health issues if I label them differently, but the moment I mention my diagnosis, there is a stigma attached. None of the symptoms change, just the label. Thank you for this question. The way some discussions about my condition are framed makes me feel less than human, as if I should not exist to avoid hurting others. Story 36. As someone who loves a person with borderline personality disorder, I understand that they are not evil. One of my best friends, who I care about dearly, is actively a good friend to me. Quiet borderline personality disorder can look very different from the stereotypes. Having borderline personality disorder does not make someone bad. I love my friend. Hooray for them. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.